Hello MouseWorks fans, and welcome to another edition of Scale Modeling News Around the World. And sorry I haven't done one in a while. Life has just been taking over and throwing me curveballs left and right, so I'm finally back doing these, so hopefully I'll keep you guys as an audience. So anyways, let's get on with the news. First up, some news about testers paints. They actually are discontinuing more of their Model Master line here and there, and the latest news is they are going to cut some of the glosses, which are the car colors, which is unfortunate because there's not a lot of companies making glosses for cars that are alternatives. The military colors, there are a few others, but car colors there's not a whole lot, so that's really unfortunate. Wish Rust-Oleum would either put more effort into them or cut them loose and sell them to somebody who does care about them. So next up is Atlantis Models is making a ton of releases. They are all old kits, and they're putting the old kits in the original box arts. So they're reasonably priced, and they some of the molds they actually cleaned up and fixed to make them a workable model. So look out for those, because those are going to be on the way. They have a few releases now, and they got a ton of old molds that they want to redo and release. So Telford was this weekend, and from the looks of it, it was huge as usual. Lots of stuff to see. The only new releases that I saw was the Rebelle Iron Maiden Spitfire, which has a little figure of Eddie with it. They had one on display there that was built up. I think it was scratch built on the figure, but they're trying to give you an idea what it looks like. So that actually is in the works. So before, when I reported on it, it was just rumor. So anyways, that'll be kind of nice, and if they continue with a series of that. So that is about, one other thing. Bandai, who makes a lot of the Gundam and Star Wars kits, they are doubling the size of their factory from what I've heard. And if you've seen some of the YouTube videos on their original factory, it's amazing. I mean, it looks like an automotive assembly plant. That's how big and how sophisticated they are. Robots controlling all kinds of stuff. So anyways, I heard that they're going to be expanding, so keep up with the demand. So hopefully their kits will be a little bit easier to get. So right now they're kind of tough. So anyways, good news from Bandai. Hopefully they'll start doing some other kits besides science fiction, maybe some real armor and so forth. So that's about it for the news. Now on to the commentary section. I got a few things I'd like to discuss and see what you guys have in opinions towards. First one is that I believe the IPMS regionals could, a lot of people complain that there's not a lot of people showing up for shows, but the regionals used to almost always be a 2-day show. Nationals was 4 days, 2 days regional, local 1 day. The good thing about doing a 2-day show for a regional was it gave a lot of people time to set up, a lot more time to look at the models. You can have seminars, you could have banquets, you could have all kinds of stuff. And I think it would attract a lot of people from other states, because I know personally that if I'm going to drive more than 5 hours to a show, I'm going to want to stay there a while instead of 5 hours there, a 3-hour show, and then come back. Some of these shows are pretty disappointing when they open at 10 o'clock and then they close at 3. So it doesn't give you much opportunity to do anything. It would be better for the vendors, better for the contestants, and better for the spectators. So I hope the IPMS clubs would take that under advisement. I've done it before with the club I was with. We had one regional that was almost as big as the nationals, and it worked smoothly. People really like the idea of it being 2 days, and it's not hard to set up. And most places, most venues will actually give you, say, the Friday evening as a freebie if you usually do a banquet or work out some kind of deals. So anyways, that's it from the regional part. Next up, I would like to see AMPS does a nationals, but it's almost always East Coast, because that's where most of the people are, most of the attendance is. But there are guys out here in the western United States that would really like to go to one of those, but they can't afford to go all that distance. The last one was in New York. So I would like to see AMPS split it and have dual nationals, have a East Coast and West Coast nationals. Even though that wouldn't mean there's just one top show, there'd be two top shows, but I think it would really help out AMPS. I know there's a lot of people out on the West Coast that want to get things going with AMPS, but it's tough, so they usually merge with an IPMS chapter and have kind of a half and half. But I think if the AMPS National Committee would realize that the Western United States needs some work and they put effort into it, they would get a lot of response. And you have a lot of members and a lot of clubs popping up, because there is definitely interest out on the West Coast. So let's see what else is out there. That is about it. The one last gripe, I'm not sure what's going on with the nationals in Texas, the IPMS nationals. Usually they have all their stuff ready to go when the previous national ends. The Texas one, you go to the website and there is almost everything is just coming soon. There's no forms for vendors. There's no categories. There's nothing. I mean, there's just hardly anything that you can look at. And even though it is a little ways off, I mean, about 7 months, still everything should be ready, and people do prepare for these way ahead of time, and they spend a lot of money going to these. So I think maybe they've got it all wrapped up behind the scenes, but their website doesn't show that they have much going right now. So if you need help, ask other clubs. They'd be willing to help. I know it means swallowing some pride and getting some other clubs to help, but please, there's a lot of people that are very concerned about that national. So anyways, that's about it for the commentary. If you would like to comment on that, leave a comment below. Otherwise, we are going to now switch to future kit releases. Okay, fans, I've got the list of new releases, and I got my little specs on so I can read them right. Looks like a couple things are coming out. I've been off the air for a little while, so some of these may have already been released, but try to keep you up to date with these. First off, HK Models, who did a series of 1/32 scale bombers, including a B-17, is planning to do a 48 scale one, and it should be as detailed as the 32nd scale one, and it looks really nice. They did have some test shots at Telford from what I saw, and it looks pretty good. Long time coming for this kit, because nobody has done one since the old Monogram kit, which is very, very accurate in sizing, but it's an old mold where everything is raised panel lines and so forth, so it definitely needed an update. So hopefully this will be a pretty decent kit. Should run about anywhere from 70 bucks to 100 bucks. Next up, 1/35 scale Takeom is coming out with a Merkava 2D, and this is really nice for you Israeli fans like myself. They're filling in all the blanks. Eventually they'll have all the versions of the Merkavas out in new molds. This kit was kitted by Academy a while back, and the whole upper turret was new and it looked really nice, but they put in the old lower chassis, which was pretty darn old, so it was showing its age, and pretty inaccurate and just not really super detailed. Not a bad kit, but this one is going to be much nicer. I mean, it's going to have all the details and what you expect from Takeom. So I would guess it's going to be Lincoln length track, but we'll have to see what they come with. And next up, 1/32 scale Mini Art is coming out with a Focke-Wulf gyro copter. This actually has been released. It's in their whole series. They have a whole bunch of different versions of this gyrocopter, a British, a civilian, and a Russian as well. But this is the latest one, and it looks really nice. It'd be neat to see how people paint the fabric being a doped silver color and do the different metals on it. So we'll see how that works. Next up is 1/35 scale Ryefield Models is coming out with a Panzer IV-J with a Schutzen armor, new mold, and new armor. So that looks to be pretty good. They've been making pretty good stuff from what I've heard. I've yet to own one of those kits and work on it. So, but I've heard pretty good things about them. Next up, 1/35th scale. Takeom is coming out with something a little different. There is a company called RPG, which came out of the T80U. They came out with some CWIS anti-aircraft batteries that were on our shipboard, and they were done in 35th scale, which was kind of odd, just having that gun unit in 35th. Well, they Takeom has picked up the flag, and they are actually going to do an AK-130 Russian anti-aircraft, anti-ship gun. This is usually on the Soremenev class of destroyers that they destroyer/cutters that they have in their inventory. It's a big turreted, round ball turreted gun, and in 35th scale this looks to be really interesting. It'll be really interesting to see how people display it and how people paint it up, but that'll be coming hopefully in December. Next up, Kitty Hawk is going to announce another Hawk series helicopter. This one is going to be an MH-60S Nighthawk. They did come out with a Black Hawk. It is on the market and looks pretty good. Hopefully the next one will be the Seahawk series, because that's the one everybody's been waiting for, since it's quite a bit different than the other Nighthawk and Black Hawks. But this one will be coming out probably early next year. Next up is AK has come out with a bunch of tutorial books, and their latest one is on how to paint with oils, and specifically they show how to use their oil brusher series, but this can work with any tube oils. A lot of mystery on how to use oils because they're kind of finicky. They don't dry very fast, but you can put stuff in them to make them dry faster or dry slower or dry flat. So there's a lot of dimensions to using oil paints, and they are very versatile when you get into weathering. So that'll be actually a really welcome book there. Alrighty, looks like that is it for future kit releases, and next up will be new kit review. Alright, MouseWorks fans, it's time for a new kit review, and as always, I always try to do something a little different. This channel is about all kinds of different kinds of modeling, not just specifically aircraft or armor, even though those are a little heavy because they're a bigger subject than some of the others. But I always try to bring in something a little bit different, get a full, complete audience. And so this issue, I actually have something a little bit fun for kit review. This is from a company called Zilpla, or Zilpla. They are called Animal Troopers, and what these are is they are little 1/35th scale figurines that are done up like anthropomorphic little critters. And this particular one is hippos in German tanker uniforms, and all these are done in 35th scale. They're really well done. They're in resin. They do giraffes, they do camels, they do all kinds of different characters, which is kind of makes modeling kind of fun. So if you have kind of a crazy tank or something, this would actually bring it to another level. So anyways, these I got out of Japan. They are actually made in Korea from Central Plus Company Limited, so they got a bunch of companies involved in this. But anyways, let's take a look at these guys. They get 1/35th scale. All right, and they are done in a gray resin. It doesn't seem to be very greasy like some of the tan resins, so I would probably wash them just in case to get some of the mold release off of them, even though it does seem to be that they don't have the issue of the tan resin here. Okay, dump out this little fat hippo here, as if there's a skinny hippo. So, okay. So what this is the gray resin, and what's really nice about these is they are extremely clean castings. I mean, extremely clean. Some of the parts have actually been glued together, like the bottom of the hippo here. They actually looks like it was a separate piece, but somebody had already assembled it at the plant. And here's his arms and stuff. They are keyed. with these little notches here, and so there is hardly any cleanup onto these. There's no sprue gates, hardly, except for maybe on the arm here. There's a little sprue gate there that has to come off, but very, very clean. These, I believe, were made from 3D printing and then cleaned up and then cast in resin cast. So anyways, here's the little guy. His little feet are stuck to him too here, and he's got his little glasses and all. So these ought to be really fun. I mean, there's a lot of these super deformed tanks and super deformed critters are coming out like crazy out of Japan and China, so that kind of seems to be the theme. Big opportunity to learn how to paint different types of textures and flesh tones on animals, especially hippos. They have a kind of a weird modeled effect on their face, and I'll get a close-up of this guy. He actually has a textured skin to him, just like hippos have that really pockmarked textured skin. So very cool. So something different. And just so you know, on the back here it says available over the age of 14, not to be taken orally. So remember that, don't take these orally. Anyways, a little bit of fun there on the new kit review. They look excellent. They should glue with super glue as normal and a little bit of putty, and just spend some time painting them up and having some fun. And that's it for new kit review. Alright, Mouseworks fans, it's time for another edition of model building techniques. And as you know, I do different types of modeling, and I show different types of modeling on this channel. And for this one, it's going to be a little bit of a departure, but it's actually something that's coming on a lot stronger. If you go to some of the model shows, you'll see a lot of the models are now lit up or have motors on them, things like that. Basically, people are hooking them up electronically. So what this is for people who want to do different electronic projects on their model. It's a couple tips and hints about using one of these. And what this is, some of you may be familiar with this. This is a multimeter. It is basically a voltmeter on steroids. It does all kinds of different measurements. And for this, we're going to actually use our ohm setting, which is this one here. It kind of looks like it's the omega symbol, looks like a circle with feet. And what we're going to do with that is that's a continuity test. So a lot of times you build a model and you get it all wired up with all the LEDs and whatever, and you get it closed up and you go to put power to it, and suddenly some of the stuff isn't working or none of it's working, and you have to tear the model apart to get into it, and it's really not that fun. So you need to test stuff as you go. So let me show you how to do some of that. And so what we're going to do is I will set this up here. See if I can get a better shot of it here. Okay. So now what this can do is it can do just regular voltages. So we'll switch it to that. And this is just something I picked up off of Amazon. It's a really good quality. It was only about 31 bucks. And I've got the little probes that it comes with for testing some of the batteries and so forth. So now I got it on DC power, and we're actually going to check the voltage of the battery. And as you can see, it's a 10.5, so it's actually a fully charged battery. This just works normally as checking any kind of voltage. You can check where the voltage ends in your wires and so forth as well. But beyond that, what we're going to do is start using the ohm meter. And for the ohm meter, we'll set this down and we'll switch it to the ohm setting, which has the OL reading on it. Now what this does is it actually tells us if there's a full circuit of power or not. So what it does is it takes one of the probes and puts power through one of the probes, and then like right now it's a broken circuit, it just stops there. So we want to see what would happen if it goes all the way through. So basically when I touch these together, I make a closed circuit, and it'll make a tone and give me a voltage. You can see that. And the little green light comes up on the top, and that tells me that it's a full circuit and that there's power going through the whole thing. Now, the advantage to this is when you're building a model and your model is the wires are soldered. Solder is conductive, so you can actually check solder connections. This is a little piece of solder here, and you'll see it tells me that there's a connection there. So if for some reason there is a small tear or something, a bad solder joint, for example, when you do solder, it should be shiny. When it cools, it shouldn't be fuzzy or foggy. That means you got a cold solder joint and may not actually give you power. So again, nothing, something. So the other little thing is, this is just a regular piece of wire here. Again, we're going to do the same thing. Some wires, once you mess with them or glue them down, sometimes they can break inside, and you can actually break most of the strands and only have like one strand left. So this is a way to test that. You test each part of the actual wire and see if it's actually connected on the inside. So you can see that is a good connection there. Now, if you cannot get to the ends of the wires, there actually is a way to probe these from the sheath, and I will show that next. Okay, what I'm going to do is these actual probes I bought separate from the actual multimeter. They do come with probes, but these ones I bought separate because they are a nicer pair, and they came with a whole bunch of different types of connectors on them. They have little alligator clips and spade connectors and so forth. So the reason I did that is mainly to get these little guys here. Now these come off with a little wrench and they just screw on, which is actually a very good way to do it. If you have some of these probes and you get a set of different kinds that actually sit over these and just kind of snap over them, the problem with those is they can lose their connection just snapping over it. It may not be snapped tight, it may have an issue with corrosion on the outside of the pin. So those are not real accurate, and you're trying to find out whether your wire works or not, and if your probes don't work, it's going to throw you off. So these ones actually screw in, so you've got a lot of area for it to come through, and it shouldn't be corroded in any way on those actual threads. And we'll tighten them up with the little wrench here. Just make sure you don't lose that wrench, because it's pretty specific and pretty handy. So, and these are little needle probes, and what these do is make it so you can read backside of the plugs. If you use a lot of the lighting kits like from Woodland Scenics where they actually have plug systems, you can actually push these through the back of the plug and read it on the inside of the back of the plug. But what I'm going to show here is something very interesting. So if you can't get to the actual ends of the wires, what you can do is these actually can pierce the wire and read the or pierce the rubber sheath and pierce the wire inside. And then when I remove them, they are it closes up the hole, and then I don't have a problem with moisture getting in there or them dead shorting. So I'll pierce the one side, and then I can, down the line, I can pierce the other side. And let me get you a closer view of that here. Okay. So I pierce the other side, and with any luck, it tells me there's a connection just from going through there. And then when I pull it out, it closes up that rubber. If you're worried about what's left of a hole, you can always put a drop of super glue on there, electrical tape, or heat shrink tubing. But anywhere down the line, I can pierce this, and it will give me a reading on the wire that's inside. So there we go. So good way to test it. These are actually pretty handy. Just be careful with them because they are needle sharp and they can poke you, and they can also get broken just like an airbrush needle. So treat them like an airbrush needle. Anyways, that is how to use a multimeter for modeling, and hope you enjoyed it. And up next will be new tool. Welcome to another edition of New Tool, and this issue we have kind of an interesting tool here that I actually am stealing from another YouTube page, a gentleman who does model cars, and he does quite a good job at it, and he came up with this idea, who he I believe hijacked from somebody else. So anyways, it's going around the net. But if you haven't seen it, what this is a lot of times when I decal, I like to have a tool to move the decal into position. When they're really small decals, it's kind of hard to use a toothpick. I like to use a pin, and the problem with that is trying to hold the pin and work it correctly. Also, when they have bubbles in the decals after it sets, you can actually use a pin to pop them, and then you can put more setting solution in them to make them settle down. But control is the name of the game. So what this is I've come up with this little needle here, and what this is just a standard needle, the kind with the little ball on the top for people doing stitching and sewing. And I've cut the little ball off cleanly with a pair of cutters, and now all I have is the needle itself. Now this is just a plain old 0.5 mechanical pencil, and the odd thing about this is this actually will fit in this barrel just like it does with the leads that it came with. These ones here, you can see they're almost the same size. So what this does, I will show you. We'll pop off the back, pop off the eraser head, and we will load it into here. Pointy side down, of course. Close that off, and then I'm going to use it just like a regular pencil, and I'm going to press and keep pressing the little button until it actually feeds the needle through the grippers. And as you can see, there it is, comes right through, and it actually will hold it just as it does the leads. And so you can make this as long or short as you want to be able to manipulate it just like a pen. You can also use this to make rivets or cleaning out items. It's very handy to have something that holds a needle like that. Plus you can actually make it shorter. So if you want just a teeny tiny thing for scribing or something, or scratching something, you can do it like that. And then of course if you don't want it out, you just retract the whole thing. But this will actually go all the way out, and then you can just pull it out of the other end once you're to the end of the needle. But this is a real handy way to actually just work with a needle. Even applying super glue and so forth, you can actually dip this in the super glue or the putty or whatever you're doing and apply it very, very small points. And then when it's done, you actually just take a lighter and you burn the glue off the end of this. Just make sure you don't get the plastic part too hot, otherwise it'll melt and this thing won't work. But these are so cheap. These are, I think this was all of $2 to make, and it's quite a handy little tool. So I hope you enjoyed that, and hope that gives you some ideas to make yourself a new tool. All right, MouseWorks fans, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Glad you stuck with me. Like I said, I've been trying to get these weekly, but unfortunately that's not happening quite as well. And as always, appreciate your support. I do have items on my MouseWorks website, some tools, the sanding sticks, and some of the anti-static liquid here for painting, plus lots of other little tools and stuff on there. They all the proceeds of that go to supporting the channel. So appreciate that. Appreciate all the support. Please be sure to like and hit the bell so you get all the updates when they come through. And spread the word. I'm trying to get some other people to see this, so unfortunately YouTube is not putting me on a good search system, so I need you guys to help me out and tell other people about it, and to watch the show and give me some comments. So thanks again for watching, and keep on modeling.